Well, today, Professor Anand Kumar, Super 30 fame, he has come to level up IS today. I hope you know, all of you have heard about him. Very great mathematician. Okay. Someone who got more popularity after that movie came out. Professor Anand Kumar. Now, let me talk briefly about the test that you guys attempted yesterday. How many of you have not given the paper? Is there anyone who has not attempted the paper? Sajid. Whosoever has not attempted the paper, okay, they will call me. Okay, and tell me why they did not write the paper. It is important to know the reason. Okay. Because I believe yesterday was 27th June. And 27th June is when UPSC was going to, uh, you know, schedule, or when UPSC was going to conduct prelims examination. And I'm sure everybody would have definitely given prelims if UPSC was on time and if UPSC was not delaying the paper. Okay. So not giving the paper is not right, especially when it was your first test. First test ही miss कर दिया. First test. And when you miss first test now, so it shows careless attitude. It shows that you do not give importance to these units, or you do not give importance to tests. Okay. Learning, only learning would not help you. And those people who have written the paper yesterday, most of them have also realized that only learning would not help. So, is there anyone who has attempted all the questions? Pranshu. Attempted all questions but not satisfied. Mehul, yes. Except one in which I have written few words. कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं. No issue. What was important? What was more important was that you get into the hang of writing answers. Okay. And I'm happy that more than 110 students have written the paper. 110 plus students have written the paper. Although, to be very honest, it's going to be very hectic for me to check the papers. 110 papers. कैसे करूंगा check में? ये बताओ. Okay, no, but jokes apart, definitely. It's great that all of you are writing the papers, but when anyhow I'm going to evaluate all these papers, so I was concerned with those few people who did not attempt the paper. Okay. जब 110 पेपर चेक कर ही रहे हैं तो 130 भी कर लेंगे यार. ठीक है. वो 20 कहाँ है? मैं ये सोच रहा था. अच्छा. So the main issue that people faced yesterday was time constraint, right? Most of the people, they faced time constraints. Now, what could be the possible reasons for time constraints for someone facing time constraint? There are two, three reasons. Okay. Today, I would like to talk more about these things because these things are also equally important. Learning is something that is anyhow we are going to have every day. But to implement, writing is something that you are implementing the policies that you have learned here. Implementation is very important. So if you're not implementing good, that means something has to be worked out in the implementation stage as well. Okay. So that is why I would like to talk more about this implementation stage. Why are we not able to attempt the paper? Okay. Why paper takes time? Okay. What happens is most of the time is gone in thinking process. Okay. For example, if 1.5 hour is given to you, at least half an hour was gone only in thinking, which is something that was not in one go. Okay, in minutes. Like for example, for 5 minutes you were thinking, and then for a few seconds you stopped writing. Okay, again you went into the thinking process. When you cumulatively add up all the amount of time that was gone in thinking process, that it comes out to be not less than half an hour, or somewhere around 20 at least 20 minutes. Okay. And when you spend 20 to 30 minutes in thinking, what does it reflect? It reflects one or two things. One, lack of revision. Okay. Or even if revision was full, in the sense you were satisfied with the revision, you have revised 2 3 times or 4 times. Okay, I mean something which is not quantifiable, in the sense someone's 4 times revision may be equal to someone's 2 time revision. Okay, that is something that I don't want to talk about. But the larger problem is lack of understanding. It is not about revision only. It is more about understanding what you are revising or reading. And I always, yes, I had issue of revision. Yes. And I always suggest students to work on this. When your understanding is clear cut, crystal clear, then it will not take you a lot of time to revise things. It is just the opposite. Okay. You can save a lot of your time on revision if your understanding is good. The thing is, how do we build up a good understanding? Okay. And what amounts to be called as good understanding? Okay. Let us not talk in vague terms. Good understanding, lack of revision. Let's be very concrete about these things. How do we get to know whether we have understood? Is concrete, and should we call our understanding as the required one or the desirable one, or the one which is required for us to get good marks in that area? How do we get to figure this out? You can easily figure this out. For example, suppose you have read positivism many times. Okay. But if I ask you to explain positivism to your father or your mother. Okay. If I ask you to explain this, the same concept to your father or mother, in the sense you have to teach positivism to someone who does not know positivism. And if you are able to teach them properly, and teaching in the sense not taking 1 hour lecture, if you are able to describe positivism to them in a very simple language in 2 minutes, that means you have attained a good level of understanding. For example, for example, what I always suggest is to think of the poorest man who could not afford education, or the poorest people or the weakest section in society who cannot afford education. If you were to explain these things to them, imagine explaining Marxism to someone who is a rickshaw driver, rickshaw puller. Okay, if you have that level of understanding, trust me, revision to kuch bhi nahi hai. Then you only revise to remember keywords. You do not revise to understand the things. Understanding is already there. Revision is then undertaken to memorize the facts. Okay, some of the facts. For example, positivism. Now we have covered positivism. Okay, and positivism is something which you will come across in every unit. Okay, and all of you know this, that when we apply natural science method in the social world, it is positivism. Okay, it is part of positivism, but what is positivism exactly? I mean, imagine I'm a rickshaw puller. Okay, you have to explain me positivism. What would you explain to me? I mean, how would you tell me? Because positivism says it's about laws. Social world has certain laws. Okay, society is driven by certain laws. It is not just universe out there which is governed by laws. Social world is also governed by laws. And the study of the laws of social world is positivism. Okay, this is something that is making sense. Okay, for example, okay, obviously the next question would be, can you please tell me some example? I mean, I got your point that social world, just like universe, is governed by laws. But can you tell me some example? Which laws are you talking about? How our actions are governed by laws? I mean, how exactly? So now, if you get stuck here, okay, if you get stuck here, that means this is something that you need to work on. And this process, for this process to happen, you do not require people. You can think all on your own. Like I just thought all these things on my own. I did not know positivism. Okay, so I tried to revise what positivism is. I mean, after 3-4 revisions, then I sat for 5 minutes. What have I read exactly? How would I be able to explain this? And when you have to explain something to someone, you do not have to explain them features, because you are not going to teach him. You just have to explain the essence, the meaning of that term in a simple language. When you start thinking like this, then trust me, revision would not take a lot of your time, and only whatever you were struggling with, all those thoughts that you were not able to think an answer of, okay, all those thoughts you would be simply scribbling on the paper. Okay, and it would form your own mind map. Okay, this is that mind map which is going to help you forever. Okay, so you will refer this mind map first and then you will refer handouts or even class for revision, something like that. Okay, so understanding is the most important factor. suppose suppose okay, I'll give you one example. Okay, suppose I say I decided to suppose, okay, I decided to stay in a nuclear family. Okay, just a normal statement I'm saying. I decided to stay in a nuclear family because I believe that nuclear family gives me freedom. In joint family, there is no freedom because in joint family, too many people are there who will exercise control on you. Okay, and they will derive their authority to exercise control over you because of the lineage, because of the way the family has been running for generations. This is the way we have been conducting ourselves. You cannot be doing this or that. I don't want to get into those things. That is why I decided to stay in a nuclear family. Okay, why I decided to stay in a nuclear family? Because I believe nuclear family gives me freedom. Who in this whole statement, who is at the center? Is it nuclear family or is it me who is at the center of the whole statement? It's me. I am deciding to stay in nuclear family because nuclear family, I believe, will give me freedom to do whatever I want to do. I am at the center. Okay, and it also gives the other person an impression that these things are in my hand to choose which family I want to stay in, whether nuclear or joint. Okay, it gives the person an impression that I can decide my own fate. When someone speaks like this is case one. Now imagine case two. Okay, and then I'll ask you one question also. Imagine case two. Case one is clear to you. Now case two. With the development of industrialization, families got broken down from joint to nuclear. Case 2. Now let me get back to case 1. Now tell me, is it my choice or is it structurally that nuclear families are coming into existence? Or my choice is also the result of industrialization? Now who is bigger? Me exercising my decision, or it was the structural process of industrialization which actually gave me the power to choose or to make nuclear family, because industrialization requires small families. Okay, if I imagine like this, the case 2 and case 1, there is a huge difference. In case 1, it's all about me. In case 2, it's all about, it sounds like a law. Case 2 sounds like a law. With industrialization, joint family will get broken down into nuclear. Is it not sounding like a law to you? Okay, it's law. It is a law. And that is why we always talk about nuclear families in the industrial societies. Because only with the industrialization, how it happened, there is something which I'll explain in family also. कि कैसे ऐसे होता है. Imagine just like this, then you will understand that yes, of course, it is law. Okay. I mean, not just because of that, but also, for example, this is joint family. Joint family is one chemical substance. Imagine like this. I am going to react this chemical substance, joint family, with a reagent or a catalyst. The name of catalyst is industrialization. Now, what do I get? I get nuclear families plus individualism plus fragments of joint family. Is it not like a reaction? I mean, is it not sounding like a law? है ना? So, now, which of these two cases explains positivism? Case 2. Okay. Simple. In the first case, it was about me. Okay, it was all about me. In the first case, I am choosing who I want to stay with. Case 2 is telling me it is not you who is choosing. Structures, the larger forces are governing your act to choose also. The very idea of you choosing reflects that the larger process has been successful in creating individualism. Otherwise, at one point of time, you did not have, imagine 100 years back, nobody really had this power to break away from the joint family. कहाँ जाओगे? सवाल ये होता था भाई. Imagine 100 years back in 1920s. 1920s, I did not have power to revolt against the members of the joint family because I did not really know where would I go, because we did not have in 1920s these job opportunities like we have today in the urban centers. There was no scope for migration. Even if migration was there, it was not at the level of mass. The means of transportation, communications, these things were not there. I would not have gotten this information as to there is some employment available, job opportunities available in some urban center, because there was no newspaper as such. Okay, printing press is also there, but still it was not as normal or as a mass phenomena as it is today. So there was no point in me breaking away from the joint family. But today, if I am breaking away from the joint family, it is only because of the power of individualism. Okay. But why I want to form nuclear family? Why I want to form nuclear family is a matter of inquiry. I have attached certain meanings to nuclear family. I believe nuclear family gives freedom. Okay. This is my understanding of nuclear family. And in this case, it is me who is at the center. Now, second person, some other person, he may attach some different meaning to nuclear family. Okay, why he or she wants to get into nuclear family? Okay. Sir, could you please say about what? This is positivism. When we read Durkheim, Durkheim also gave us certain laws. Could you please say about common sense is reality familiarized social? ये तो चलो हम करेंगे ही. Once I'm done with the evaluation process, then we will discuss these questions. Okay, but today I just want to have a brief want to give you a brief explanation on how to understand things. Okay. When we read Durkheim, what did we read? We read that suicide rates will increase with industrialization. Is this not a law? He's clearly telling us suicide rate will increase with industrialization. It is a law. And that is why when we read suicide theory given by Durkheim, he seems to me a positivist, Durkheim. But when I read religion theory given by Durkheim, he does not seem to me a positivist scholar. Because in religion, he is not giving any laws to us. Although he tried to study religion in a scientific fashion, but he did not develop laws out of it. To study something scientifically and to develop laws, these are two different things. Okay, many scientists, they study everything in a scientific fashion. That does not mean that they are coming up with law every time, na. Law तो भाई कुछ ही लोग निकालते हैं. Okay, when you used to conduct experiments in your school days, in 10th and 11th or in 9th, when you used to go to chemistry lab, physics lab, were you developing laws? No, you were conducting experiments only. Okay, and those experiments were conducted in a scientific fashion. Okay, so to conduct something in a scientific fashion and to develop laws, these are not always interrelated to each other. Okay, you may study something scientifically, does not mean that you will necessarily develop laws. Law development is the higher stage. It is the higher stage. Okay, so Durkheim did conduct a scientific study on elementary forms of religion. Acha, the meaning of basically today what I want to do is I want you guys to go through whatever we have studied till now. Okay, and trust me, what I am doing today. Okay, what I am doing today. If I had done this 20 days back, you would not have understood it. Things grow organically. Today, what I am telling you, everything you will understand because you have gone through the process. So this is the next layer. This layer is, as you know, we say that knowledge is cumulative. It adds on to something that already exists. And now whatever I'm going to tell you today, you will understand everything because you have a base in your mind already established. Okay. Now, Durkheim. Only if I talk about Durkheim, elementary forms of religion. Elementary. The basic question would be, why elementary forms? Kitna basic question hai, right? See, we will study elementary forms of religious life. But then imagine if I ask you, acha, why Durkheim studied elementary form? Why not the modern form? Kitna basic question hai ye? But ये basic question दिमाग हिलाते हैं हमारा actually में. Okay, the question that checks your basic knowledge are the toughest ones. Okay, so that is why when I said the paper will be toughest, actually what I meant was that it is going to be very basic. Okay, so you must have realized yesterday that the things that were being asked were very basic. In the sense, when you read the question, you would think that यार ये तो पता होना चाहिए था, ये हाँ सही बात है. It is very basic. Okay, and that is why basics जो होते हैं. Okay. Why elementary forms? Okay. Why Durkheim studied elementary forms of religion? In order to understand something complex, you first have to understand the basic. Okay, imagine why scientists study asteroids, the composition of asteroids. Why scientists are interested in studying the composition of asteroids? The reason, if you ask that scientist, why are you interested in studying the composition of asteroid? He will say, because I want to explain the origin of universe. अरे यूनिवर्स को एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए तुम वो छोटे से पत्थर को स्टडी कर रहे हो. Okay, because I want to understand how the universe came into existence, how earth got formed. To study these things, I am studying that chota sa stone, chota sa particle. That scientist is also doing elementary form of the existence of universe. That elementary form of existence of universe is the asteroid or the rocky composition of that particle. Okay. So did Durkheim. Religion is a very complex phenomena. In order to understand this complex phenomena, we will have to understand the basic. Okay, now I could have told this thing to you that day itself when I was teaching you Durkheim. Okay, but there are few things that you will understand only after you have gone through those things. Okay, not at that point of time. And I knew that when you write the test now, okay, actually I was waiting for this test only. Okay, because I know that when you write the test, then you start thinking on your own. Before the test, you would not think. Before the test, what happens is we learn, we understand, we memorize. We do not think. Thinking process हमारा खत्म हुआ होता है. But when we write the test, we start thinking. And thinking is that one thing which has taken 20-30 minutes. Why it took you 20-30 minutes on the day of test? Because you never thought before. You thought only on that day. Okay. And when you start thinking, then you start to get into the roots of the complexities. Okay. And when you start analyzing the roots of those complex things, then you understand, oh, this was so easy. Ye tha bas. This is so easy. So this is an organic process. Okay. Now, Acha, by the way, is there anyone who is from sociology background? Anyone who had undergraduation or post-graduation in sociology? Anyone? Undergraduation or post-graduation in sociology? Atika Qureshi, रिया जैन, अच्छा काफी लोग हैं. तनिक्षा, साजिद तुमने भी किया है, ठीक है. अच्छा, बीए और एमए, अंडर ग्रेजुएशन, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन? बीए. ओके ओके ओके, ठीक है ठीक है. So our our UPSC syllabus is very much in alignment with The BA. Pursued MA from IGNOU. Okay, ठीक है. Very much aligned with bachelor's. Not exact bachelor. The UPSC syllabus is more like an intermediary stage between BA and MA. It is like BA honors. Okay, when you see the syllabus of UPSC sociology, now you will see that BA syllabus in itself is not sufficient, or the understanding that we have at BS is not sufficient. It is BA honors, and over the last 2 years, they have also started asking questions from the areas which are taught at the MA level. Okay, but I never suggest student, like for example, when student would ask me कि इस तरह के क्वेश्चंस जो होते हैं ये हम कहाँ से करेंगे जो इस तरह के आए हैं यूपीएससी में. Okay, I do not suggest them to read anything for that, because those are MA level, and you know, you would only get to have answer to that question only which was asked by UPSC, but you would never be able to prepare yourself to tackle such questions in the future as well. Okay, like out of 20 questions, suppose one question was from MA. Okay, and if you start looking for books to find answer to that one question, you may end up missing out the larger picture, that is 19 questions that we are supposed to do. We do not have to be acing all the questions. We have to attempt only 19 questions out of 28, and we have choice in that terms. Okay, so acha, now the third thing. Whenever you study, anything theoretical, always look out for examples. Unless you have examples in your head to justify what you have written in theory, unless you have example, it would not be able to reflect the level of understanding that is expected from a candidate. And how would the other person get to know that you have understanding only when you write examples? Okay, so in yesterday's paper, I don't know how many of you have written examples. Okay, there's something that we will see, we will evaluate, and then we'll get to know. Okay, if you do not write examples, you are not showing your true potential to the examiner. Okay, always make a point to write examples also. Okay, so today I will just briefly introduce you to a very important concept. Okay, tomorrow, by the way, we are going to finish Karl Marx, and we will start off with Max Weber day after tomorrow. So I'll just briefly give you one introduction to a very basic concept. I think the last class that we took was on mode of production. Mode of production was over, and mode of production, I think, is very much clear to you guys. The question is, okay, we have read, like for example, we have read mode of productions. Okay, But suppose if I ask you, which mode of production do we have in India? Basic question. Okay, I have not taught you this thing, but I just want to see how do you think these things on your own. I mean, I do not really want to teach you everything. I want you guys to be always in a thinking process. Okay. Which mode of production do you think is in India? Feudal, capitalist, ancient, primitive, mixed. Acha, do we have primitive communism in India? Primitive communism? Yes. Yes, we have primitive communism in India. Sentinelese, Gonds, tribals. Okay. Primitive communism. Do we have feudal system? Yes. UP, Bihar, highly feudal belt. Okay. Zamindari, the land. Okay. Land ownership and the landlords. Chaudhary Sahab are very much there in Haryana, UP and Bihar. Okay. ये चौधरी साहब मेंटेलिटी जो है ये वहीं की है. फ्यूडल लैंड, फ्यूडल माइंडसेट. ओके. जाट, गुजर. हु आर दीज जाट गुजर्स? ये एथनोसेंट्रिक बिहेवियर कहां से आ गया है इंडिया में? वेयर वर दीज जाट गुजर्स 30 years बैक? ये एकदम से कहां से आ गए? हैव यू एवर वंडर्ड दीज थिंग्स? एकदम से जाट प्राइड, गुजर प्राइड एकदम से आ गई है. You know, over the last 10 years only you would see that these people have become so much visible. Jat pride, Gujar pride. Okay. Which is also something that I will explain to you when I'll teach you ethnicity. Okay. Ethnocentrism. How did this actually happen? Okay. जैसे गाड़ियों के पीछे लिखते हैं वो, जाट की गाड़ी है आगे जा रही, देख के चल, ऐसे करके कुछ लिखा होगा, कुछ ऐसा करके. ठीक है. अच्छा, do we have capitalist mode of production in India? Yes. Okay. So that shows, acha, do we have socialist? Yes. So basically you will see that we have all the modes of production. Okay. And not just we, there are many countries which have all these modes of production. Okay. And that is why I told you that no country is purely capitalist. No country is purely socialist. Okay. These are only, then what are these? These are only models. These are only models. For example, when you read when you read the composition of light, what light consists of, particles, waves, photons. In reality, you would not see only photons, only waves, or only particles. You would see mix. You would see a mix. Okay. So similarly, but the wave paradigm will tell us we have wave. Photon paradigm of light will tell us light consists of photons. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that these are only models to look at the light. Photon paradigm is a theoretical perspective to look at the light. When you look at the light through photon paradigm, you will only see photons. When you look at the light through wave paradigm, you will only see waves. When you look at the light through particle paradigm, you will only see particles. Okay. So that means in science also we have models. When you study universe through Einsteinian perspective. You will explain universe with a different model. When you study universe through Newtonian perspective, you will explain universe with a different model. So does it not show us that science is also, you know, using models to explain reality? Scientists also use models to explain reality. Okay. And social scientists, for that matter, they are no exception. They would also have their own models. They have Einstein, we have Marx. Okay. They have Newton, we have Max Weber. Okay. And these are those people who are present not only in sociology. You will see these people in political science. Karl Marx, Max Weber. You will see them in political science also. You will see them even in language. You will also see them in English course, MA English. Okay, Marxism or Weber's theory, or in linguistic course, or even cultural theories. Okay, or even in anthropology, or even in philosophy. In philosophy, you read Marxism again. Okay, these are there. Okay. One more thing. When I talk about scientific method, okay, scientific method. I come across certain steps that we have in scientific method. Okay. Some steps would be like, first obviously would be research question. You cannot follow a method unless you have any question to get an answer of. Okay, you obviously have something in your mind, you want to find an answer to some question. That is why you are trying to follow method. Otherwise, you have no reason to follow this method. I mean, this is very common sense. Okay. So obviously, you have to have some question in your head. And that obviously would be the first step. And when you have question in your head, what do you do? Suppose the first question comes in your head. First question that comes to your head is, what will be the percentage of environment questions in the prelims 2022? Suppose this is your research question. How many questions of environment are there going to be this bar prelims mein? Okay. Now, in order to get the answer to this question, what is the thing that you do? You first refer previous year questions. Okay. That means what do? You review the literature. Okay. And after going through previous year questions, 5-year previous year questions, then you form one hypothesis, assumption. Approximately 30 questions to आएंगे. Approximately 30 questions will be there. Okay, this is what your hypothesis is. And after reviewing the literature, we form hypothesis. Approximately 30 questions from environment. Okay. Now, you appeared in 2022 prelims examination. Let us assume that it's already over, 2022 prelims. You saw 35 questions from environment. Okay. When you saw 35 questions from environment in the paper, what did you do? You collected data. Data collected. Okay. What was the data? Data was 35 questions. Okay. And with this data collection, what did you do? You verified your hypothesis. You verified your hypothesis. And then you say, next year, every year in UPSC, at least लिखवा लो मेरे से, तुम अभी लिखवा ही लो, पेन लेके आओ, अभी लिखूंगा मैं. 35 questions every year will be there in UPSC, mark my words. Okay, so you become a prophet who's predicting future. Every year 35 questions will come. पक्का इसको करो, इसी से होएगा. Okay, and then one year दो क्वेश्चन आए. ठीक अगले साल 2 questions from environment. Okay. Acha, by the way, when I said every year 40 questions will come from environment, is this statement scientific or not? Acha, you know, this also matters. The way you ask questions can also influence your the opinion of the people. There is something which we will read also. Okay, Hawthorne effect भी बोलते हैं इसको. Yes, it is scientific. It is scientific. Why? See, remember, what do we mean by scientific? Scientific does not mean something is absolutely true. पहले तो वो दिमाग से वो हटाओ, प्री-कंसीव्ड नोशन हटा दो. ठीक है? Scientific, if I say this is scientific statement or scientific theory, that does not mean that this theory is absolutely correct or that statement is absolutely correct. What does it mean then? It only means that this theory or statement is testable. You can test it. It is not some random statement which cannot be tested. Okay, this statement or theory is something which you can test. This is why it is scientific. It is not scientific because it is absolutely true. Because science, even in science, there is no absolute truth. Is there any absolute truth in science? I mean, of course, the basic things you will say that we have sun. Yes, we have sun. Okay, वो है. I am talking about laws. Okay, talking about theories. We do not have absolute theories or laws to explain the functioning of the universe. Okay, अगर वो सन है तो फिर तुम, अब अगर हम ये ऐसे बोलें कि सन तो है ही, अर्थ तो है ही, ओके, हाँ तो है, तो फिर तुम भी हो, मैं भी हूं, ये तो वही बात हो गई. अब वो थोड़ा हम कह रहे हैं कि भाई वो नहीं है, वो तो है ही. Okay, so scientific means it can be tested. So if I say every year 35 questions will come in UPSC from environment, it is testable statement. It can be tested. Okay. Now, if I ask you one basic question, one very basic question. Unemployment is the source of crime rate. Higher unemployment leads to higher crime rate. अच्छा, पहली बात तो ये है क्या? Is this not sounding like a law to you? You know, is it not cause effect relation that we are drawing? Okay. Concomitant variation. Higher toxic substance in the water will lead to the higher toxicity level of the water. This is cause effect simply. Higher source of higher unemployment is the source of higher crime rate. A leads to B. If I say anything like that, is it scientific statement? And the meaning of scientific, remember, is not, is it absolutely true statement? No. Scientific means, always remember Karl Popper. Okay, always remember. Because it is not, remember, it is not only Popper's version. अच्छा ये भी एक दिमाग में है. When we say that this is scientific, this is not scientific, is this according to Popper or is it universal concept? It is universal concept. Acha, then what is according to Popper? According to Popper, one thing is very specific to Popper, that is science and pseudoscience, demarcation principle. Okay, but to be scientific is something every natural scientist, when you will read their works, they also talk about how do we determine scientificity of something. When do we call something? When do we call experiment a scientific experiment? Even the greatest scientists that we have had in the history, they also agree that there is no absolute truth in the natural world. They are still exploring. Science is also maturing. Okay, science does not claim to have monopoly of truth, by the way. Okay, some scientists may claim to have monopoly. Some scientists may sound very arrogant, okay, criticizing social science or criticizing religion or magic. But science as a body of knowledge does not claim to have monopoly of truth. Okay, because science, if you remember, is very much based on one concept, that is skepticism. Organized skepticism. Scientists accept criticism because they know you will accept criticism only when you know that the knowledge that you possess is not absolute. Only then you would accept criticism. Otherwise, there is no reason for you to accept criticism. And scientists are, uh, humble enough to accept the loopholes or criticism of their theories. Only then, because they are thinking not about themselves, they are thinking about the larger world, the contributions that their theories are going to make to the larger world. And that is why they are not selfish, so selfish to not accept criticism of their theories, because they want to serve the larger scientific community and larger world. And that is why they would appreciate if someone would find any loopholes in their theory, so as to make, so as to serve the larger humanity in a better fashion. Okay, so meaning of these terms should be very clear. So when I say higher unemployment is the source of higher crime rate, this is one thing for sure, this is testable. I can test it. Acha, how will I test it? Simple. Bhai, I'll go through the composition of all the criminals, all those criminals, and I'll see how many of them were unemployed. Okay. Suppose I have data of 100 criminals, suppose. And if I found 90 or more than 90 or any bigger figure clearly telling me that most of these are unemployed, then definitely this theory is valid. But if I find 20 or 30 unemployed and larger 70% of the people are well employed, some of them are driving Uber, Ola, or they are also working with Swiggy, okay, or they are also working with some companies, that is Deloitte, okay. Crime, they are also criminals. White collar crime. Okay, white collar crime is something that I will explain to you. Okay, when we think of this word crime, we often start thinking of those poor people who are stealing someone's money, attacking on someone. The biggest crime is the money laundering, the biggest source of black money. And money laundering happens at the level of white collar people. Okay, that is also crime. Okay, is that crime the consequence of unemployment? Nahi, that crime is the consequence of employment only. You are employed in those sectors where either there is no state regulation, or even if there is state regulation, there is not enough stringent provision. Okay, so basically I'm just telling you how can we think. How can we think? Okay. Shubham, is this not generalization by 100 samples? Yes. तभी तो मैं बोल रहा हूं. Anything that seems to be generalization, if that generalization is testable, then it is good. If you make generalization that is not testable, then तब तो फिर generalization को भी accept नहीं करना चाहिए. Okay. Generalizations are, you will find generalization in natural science also. Okay, but they are able to test those generalizations. Okay, for example, Einstein had this thing in his mind. He believed that in the year 1919, the great solar eclipse will tell me. Okay, the solar eclipse, he was actually waiting for that solar eclipse to come because he believed, he had generalized this thing in his mind. Only there is no other reason for him to wait for the 1919 solar eclipse, because this thing was generalized in his mind that yes, solar eclipse can tell me whether light bends or not. Okay, so nothing wrong in that generalization per se, as long as it is testable, and it was testable. आदर्श गुप्ता, स्यूडो साइंस, कौन से वाला आदर्श? Jigyansha Jyoti. Sir, then every generalization made through inductive reasoning is testable? No, not every generalization is testable. Not every generalization is testable. For example, see, the biggest problem is, when it comes to social world, there are many things you cannot test. Why? Because the way those things are defined. For example, I say higher in unemployment is the reason for higher crime rate. Now the question is, how do you define crime? Now, what is the definition of crime to you? Okay. And which people do you call as unemployed? What is the reason, or what is the criteria for you to categorize someone as unemployed or employed? In social world, you will have these many of subjectivities. Okay. And therefore, for something to be testable, first of all, it has to be concrete. It has to be concretely defined. In the natural world also, when you follow inductive reasoning, okay, you go from few to general. And when you go from few to general, going to general is not wrong. But if you have come up with a generalization that is not testable, then of course it is not scientific. Okay. Going by the last example that I gave to you in the class, all swans are white was one generalization. Okay. I observed few white swans and then I developed this generalization. All swans are white. Now this is testable, easily testable, and that is why it is scientific. It is wrong, that is different thing, but it is scientific because it is testable. Okay. But did we test this statement? No, we did not initially. That is why deductive reasoning, when you talk about deductive reasoning, it is only about testing that thing which was hypothesized. Okay, deductive reasoning is based on testing those things. And this is what Karl Popper's version of science is all about. And he believes that science, in order for something to be called as scientific, the test is very important. If you cannot prove something wrong, because you can easily prove anything right in this world. Anything can be proven right in this world. There is not even one thing that cannot be proven right. But to test means to prove it wrong. If it can be proven wrong, then it is scientific. It may be wrong technically, but it is scientific. So that is why I told you scientific does not mean true or false. If it is generalization and can be tested also, what do we call it? No, if it is testable, every generalization, if all those generalizations are testable, that means they are scientific. Simple. If anything can be tested, it is scientific. Acha. Remember one more word. One more word. ये बंद हो गया. If any statement, theory, okay, or law, whatever you call it, okay, if any statement, theory, or law is scientific, it means that it is testable, right? And what is the meaning of testable? Testing does not mean proving it right. That is not test. Okay. If you, like, for example, if I appear in prelims examination, okay, the one example that I've already given you, and if I have marked answer of one question C, and I go to Google just to see whether C is right, and I am always writing that statement which will prove C as right. I'm not considerate enough to accept that I may be wrong. I want to prove others wrong. That C is right. C, Google में देख लो एक पेज मिल गया मेरे को कह रहा है C is right. Okay, so this is not test. This is not test. At the surface, it seems that yes, हाँ test कर लिया है Google पे से डाल के देखा. So, but this is not test in the language of Karl Popper. Testable means it should be falsifiable. And what is the meaning of falsifiable? It means that this statement, law, or theory should have capacity to be proven wrong. Should have capacity to be proven wrong. If I say, suppose if I say, yesterday Santa Claus came to my room and I got this surprise from Santa Claus. Okay, I got this book, this mobile. Now, is this scientific? No. And why? Is this non-scientific because it is nonsense, or is this non-scientific because it cannot be tested? In this example, both the explanations are coinciding with each other actually. By chance that this is one statement where it is neither testable nor making sense. Okay. So that is why I am easily able to call it unscientific. Okay. Now, I did not simply buy that statement because I believe that person, he has never lied in his whole world. And I have seen many people, you know, talking about Santa Claus gifting something to them one or the other day. So this is not how I should approach this. If I approached that statement like this, that no, it happens. You know, Santa Claus मैंने देखा आते हैं, एक बार साल में एक दो बार आ जाते हैं कभी कभी. And I've seen many people, you know, were given gift by Santa one or the other time. So this is also a test, but this is not a test in the language of pauper. In the sense, I'm only verifying. I'm saying yes, you know, I've seen Santa Claus, you know, I've seen many people talking about Santa Claus gifting them something. So this is not a test in the language of pauper. You are simply verifying. You are not able to think of a condition which can falsify this. If you're not able to think of condition which can falsify it, like for example, let me give you one more example. If I say that we have Mercury between Sun and Venus, or if I say there is one planet between Sun and Venus, there is one planet between Sun and Venus, is this scientific? Yes, scientific, because not because you know that there is one planet, Mercury. Okay, it is not scientific because you already know that there is one planet called Mercury between Sun and Venus. It is scientific only because it can be proven wrong as well. It has the power to be proven wrong. How it can be proven wrong? Array, it can be tested ka matlab kya hai? It can be proven wrong. You go to space, see. And if you are not able to see any planet between Sun and Venus, okay, then of course it shows that that statement had the capacity to be proven wrong. And if you saw one planet, then it was tested right. But it had the condition to be proven wrong in the first place. This is important. Okay. So scientific का meaning बड़ा clear रहना चाहिए. Why I'm saying scientific का meaning clear रहना चाहिए? Do you remember there was one question which I told you guys, do not attempt this question right now. We will attempt this question in unit 4. There was one question, is non-positivist methodology scientific? In previous year question. There is one question, is non-positivist methodology scientific? You cannot attempt that question properly if you do not know what the meaning of scientific is. Okay. So once you have proper understanding of these things, तो फिर तो क्वेश्चन कुछ भी नहीं लगेंगे, because the question is very basic actually. You will see that question तो बड़ा basic है. Okay, and you will attempt it very nicely if you have basic strong, if you know what is scientific, if you know what is non-positivist. If you know non-positivism but you do not know scientific and you think positivism is science, so obviously non-positivism is not science. So that means आपका basic नहीं ठीक ठीक है. Sir, then we need to find in unemployment rate and crime rate one example of where crime and unemployment do not occur. Then like data is one example only we need. क्या है question? We need to find in unemployment rate and crime rate one example of where crime and unemployment do not. Yes. Okay, मैं समझ गया सवाल. Just think like this. Higher unemployment is the source of higher crime rate. Okay, is the source of higher crime rate. Okay. So first of all, to me, this statement, if someone would ask me कि इस तरह की बकवास कौन करेगा, which theoretical strands of research methodology would say anything like this or would support anything like this? Obviously, you cannot expect phenomenologist to speak anything like this. Okay. Why? Because, phenomenology would never say that there is one cause effect in the social world. There are multiple causes behind multiple effects. There is no objectivity. It is all illusion. But here I can see highly objective statement. And it also seems to me like a cause effect. Okay. It also seems to me like a proposition which is highly scientific, something that can be tested. Okay. Something that seems to be highly objective, giving me one objective picture of the world, that it is the higher unemployment that is the source of higher crime rate. जैसे साइंटिस्ट बात करते हैं, तो ये तो मेरे को सीधी सी बात है, ये पॉजिटिविज्म तो दिख ही रहा है, इसमें तो शक है नहीं. अच्छा, now you know that positivism has two branches, functionalist, Marxist, but do we need to go into those details? नहीं, उसमें जाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, हमें उसमें हमें जाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. Why? Because remember this one thing. Okay, this is one detail which I'm going to tell you now in the next two lines is that detail which how do I explain this? In order to understand this line which I'm going to tell you right now, you will have to come out of this thing that we are reading a subject first of all. Okay, the moment you start thinking that we are not reading a subject in UPSC for 500 marks, when you stop thinking like this, then you will understand what I'm going to tell you. Okay, but you will have to come out this thing that we are reading a subject called sociology. Okay, because when these people for example, when Marx, whatever Marx has written, he never wrote those things for sociology. Okay, he did not know that one subject is going to be there and my philosophy is going to be called as positivist one day. He did not know those things. Okay, so although we know that positivism has functionalism and Marxism, okay, but we have the option of ignoring or of not going into these details. But if you still want to go into these details, one thing is for sure, that you would not be talking about functionalism. Okay. And when you say higher unemployment is the source of higher crime rate, this is something that even Marxism per se as a philosophy would not support. Okay. Why? Because to Karl Marx, do you know who are the criminals? To Karl Marx, the bourgeoisie are the criminals. And when you see a statement like this, higher unemployment is a source of high crime rate, अरे तुम्हारे दिमाग में कौन है crime rate के मामले में? Working class. But to Karl Marx, working class are not the criminals. The owning class, the ruling class is the criminal. Okay, they are the criminal because why they are criminal is something which I'll explain to you right now. Okay, but remember, Marxism would never support this statement, because how do you define crime? If you have defined crime as crime committed by working class people, then it is not Marxist statement. Marxism would never support it. But yes, at the surface, if I remove all the subjectivities in my head, okay, I do not know how they have defined crime. I do not know how they have defined unemployment. At the surface, this statement seems to me a statement given by a positive scholar who believes in giving cause effect in the social world. Okay, this is one thing clearly that I can say here, instead of going into the nitty gritties of functionalist or Marxist. Okay. Acha. Now the next part. Next part. Is this scientific? Now, I can call this statement scientific only if it is testable. And the meaning of testable is means that it can be falsified. It can be falsified. And if I have one data, or if I have seen other reports talking about other reasons behind the source of higher crime rate, being the source of higher crime rate and not unemployment per se, okay, then I would say that it is testable, it is falsifiable, because it is not the high unemployment which is the source of higher crime rate. It could be some other reason, but the statement was testable, in the sense it was falsifiable. Okay, this statement has given us enough room to test it. A leads to B. It can be tested whether A leads to B, or maybe it is C which has led to B, maybe it has D which has led to B, maybe it is E which has led to B. Okay. Maybe it is not the higher employment which is a source of higher crime rate, rather it is higher employment which is the source of higher crime rate. Maybe. Acha. So how do we approach this question? When you have to write answer to this question, you have to think about possibilities. You do not have to quote data or reports. Okay, you have to think about possibilities beyond the given statement, whether it is testable. And if it is testable, that means if it is falsifiable, what can be the possible reasons behind the statement being wrong? So this is something that you had to think on your own. But one thing was very much sure, that it is a testable statement. Okay. Now, the discussion obviously I'll conduct once the evaluation process is over. That is why I don't want to go into each detail of the question right now. Let me start off with another concept on Marx today. Okay. Mode of production is over. The next is class struggle. Class struggle. Now the question is, what is class struggle? Before understanding what is class struggle, we should understand what is class. Okay. And what is the meaning of class in the language of Marx? See, if you remember this, ancient society, okay, before ancient primitive society, ancient society, feudal society, then capitalist society. Okay, in feudal society, it was lords and serfs. In ancient society, it is master and slaves. In capitalist society, it is bourgeoisie and proletariat. Bourgeoisie and proletariat. What is this? The history has advanced from primitive stage, which was classless. History has advanced like this from classless to master slave to lord serfs to bourgeois proletariat. And this evolution of history has its roots in material conditions. Okay, and this is clearly materialist interpretation of history that I'm doing in terms of the struggle between classes. And how did these classes come into existence? How did these classes come into existence? Can someone tell me how from classless society the concept of class came? Yes. When secondary needs develop after gratification of primary needs, whosoever developed technology to satisfy those needs, those people possessed ownership. Okay, initially they possessed ownership over that means of production, and once they possessed ownership over the means of production, it changed the relations of production. Otherwise, relations of production were very much communal. Communal in the sense harmonious, peaceful. Everybody was doing similar work, similar food, similar clothing, similar lifestyle, similar shelter. The moment needs developed new class, a class formation started happening. This class was the owner of the technology or the means of production through which the new needs could be gratified. Okay, and that this is how classes have developed in the history. Okay, and now the question is, what is class? And as you know, history, according to Marx, hitherto, Marx clearly says, history of all societies, hitherto, hitherto, hitherto means until now, अभी तक की, यानी कैपिटलिज्म तक की हिस्ट्री जो है, history of all societies hitherto till capitalism has been history of class struggle. क्लास स्ट्रगल यानी कि कार्ल मार्क्स की इस लाइन से, इस स्टेटमेंट से सिलेबस का एक टॉपिक बन गया क्लास स्ट्रगल. ठीक है. अच्छा, the question is, what is class? Let us first define class. Marx himself never defined class. Okay, remember this. Marx never defined class himself. But with the writings of Marx, we can conclude that class to Marx is a group of people having, write down, a group of people having similar relations to the means of production. Okay, Write down this line first. Group of people having similar relation to the means of production. Okay, now we have two classes in capitalism. Let us take one example of capitalism. Okay, we have two classes in capitalism. One is bourgeoisie, second is proletariat. Right? Now let us try to apply this definition to these classes, bourgeoisie and proletariat. So let me now read bourgeois class. So see, there are two words. One is bourgeoisie and second is bourgeois. Bourgeois, when I say, okay, and when I say bourgeoisie, there is a difference. Bourgeoisie is a noun. It is a noun. Noun है, ऐसे casually आप बोल सकते हो bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie simply means the owner of the means of production or the industrialist class or the capitalist class so called. Okay. When I say bourgeois class, फिर ये noun नहीं है, ये adjective हो गया है ना. Adjective ही बोलेंगे ना इसको. अब मुझे वो सब याद नहीं है इंग्लिश में इस चीजों को क्या बोलते हैं, बट आई होप इट इज एडजेक्टिव. हाँ, एडजेक्टिव हो गया फिर सेम चीज. ठीक है. सो वन इज bourgeoisie एंड सेकंड इज bourgeois क्लास. bourgeois क्लास, ओके, और bourgeoisie एक ही बात है. नाउ लेट अस ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड हाउ इट इज अ क्लास. bourgeois class is a group of people having similar relations to the means of production. And what is the meaning of this? It means that bourgeois are those people, bourgeoisie are those people who have similar relations to the means of production. And there, what is the similar relation? That all of them are owners of the means of production. That is why similar relations. All the bourgeoisie having similar relation to the means of production. That means all of them are the owner. Acha. Now second is proletariat. Proletariat is also a class. A class means a group of people having similar relations to the means of production. And what is that so-called similar relation amongst these proletariats in relation to the means of production? That they do not own the means of production, and they all of them are selling their labor to the capitalist class. And this is a similar relation between all of them, and that is why they are also class. Like for example, me and you, both of us are proletariats. Okay, both of us are proletariats. Okay, चलो अभी तुम्हारी बात नहीं करते because you are not working, you are studying. Okay, let me talk about me and chai wala. Me and chai wala. Okay, both of us are proletariats. Okay, नहीं हो मैं तो चाय वाले से भी नीचे हूँ, because चाय वाला is at least owner of the दुकान. Okay, but anyhow उसको भी छोड़ देते हैं अभी. ठीक है. Let me talk about a person who is cooking Maggie in someone's shop. Okay, so that person who is employed to cook Maggie, that person and me who is employed to teach one subject, both of us are same. In the sense, we are similarly placed in the social world. Imagine a person, think like this. There is one store run by one man. This man has employed one man. only to cook Maggie. There is another store, level up. There is one man. This man has employed me to teach sociology. Now, this man and this man are similar because both of them are owners of the means of production. And this man and this man are similar because both of them are not owners, and both of them, what else is the relation between them which is uniting them? That relation is that both of them are there to sell their labor to these people. Okay. Got it? Now, I'm going to tell you something which is very important. There is a concept called as the objective experience and subjective conditions of class. Okay. These are two different concepts. Okay. One is class being objective experience, and second being subjective condition. Okay. Now, as far as class as objective experience and subjective condition is concerned, remember one thing. Okay. When me and that Maggie wala, when both of us would realize that both of us are exploited by our owners. See, try to understand this thing. Okay. Today I'm very happy. खुश हूं मैं बहुत. ठीक है. For whatever reason, I'm very happy. Acha, why I'm happy? Because I'm making enough money. I'm able to do whatever I want to do. Okay. I'm able to express myself. I'm able to take some time out to meet my friends. I'm able to enjoy every luxury that I have seen on television, something like this. Okay, let us take example. So that is why I'm happy. Okay. Now I am happy. Okay, but to Karl Marx, I am stupid. Just think like this. I'm stupid. I'm highly idiot person. To Karl Marx, I'm highly idiot person because I'm not able to realize. I'm not able to realize that I have been exploited and I am exploited every day. This is something that I'm not able to realize according to Marx. And only Marx knows how exploitation takes place in such a sweet fashion that you would never realize that you are exploited. Okay. Just remember this thing, that remember this thing one. Okay. What is the meaning of objective experience? First write down, then I'll explain. Class as objective experience simply means class as objective experience simply means that the workers the workers have realized the workers have realized that they are exploited. Workers have realized that they are exploited, and they know how they are exploited. Okay. When workers realize that they are exploited, and when they know also how they are exploited, then class will have objective condition. Okay, just think like this. And when do we call class as having subjective condition? When workers do not realize that they are exploited. Okay, next line. Class would be subjective condition. Class would be subjective condition when workers are living in false consciousness. Class would be subjective condition when workers are living in false consciousness. मैं बताता हूँ क्या है इसका मीनिंग. When workers are living in false consciousness. ओके, अच्छा, अब ये कहानी शुरू कहां से होती है? This is very interesting work by Marx. Okay, in order to explain this thing, I'll have to explain you few important terms and few important things which actually made Marx what he became afterwards. Okay. See, imagine like this. All those people who are working professionals, they will also understand what I'm telling them. Okay. When you get a job, what are you doing exactly? Do you know? When you get a job, you are selling your labor, first of all. Okay. Why I'm using this word, you are selling your labor? See, per month you get certain amount, right? Let us imagine you get per month you get let us imagine 30 or 40,000 or 50 or 60, कुछ भी imagine कर लो, imagine करना जो अच्छा लगे, ठीक है? Let us assume there is one person A, okay, Mr. A or Miss A. Now this person is working in a company called as Amul. Okay, Mr. A is working in Amul. Amul is giving this person 30,000 rupees per month. Okay, what does it mean? That this person, see, you will get 30,000 rupees only if you have also given something to the other person. Otherwise, how would you get 30,000? हवा में कुछ तो आपने भी दिया होगा उनको. What have you really given to the company in exchange of which you got 30,000? You have given your labor. Okay, labor. And to be more precise, you have actually given your labor power. You give your labor power to the company. What is the meaning of labor power? I'll explain. And in exchange, you get 30,000 rupees for the labor power that you have given to the company. Okay, now what is the meaning of labor power? Okay, Basically, I'm explaining you the inner working of class struggle. I'm going into the mechanism, the innermost mechanism of how Marxism works. Okay. The meaning of labor power. The labor that is sold to the employer for wage. Understood? इसमें वैसे कुछ है भी नहीं, सिंपल ही है ये. You have sold your labor power to Amul. That means you have sold something, and if you are selling your labor power in exchange for wage, your labor power is also a commodity. Labor power is also a commodity. It is also commodity. अब शुरू होता है मार्क्स, असली आदमी. Labor power is a commodity. See, you sold your commodity in exchange of which you got 30,000 rupees. Imagine like this: you sold your car, you got 30,000 rupees. Now you sold your labor power to Amul, and every month they will give you 30,000 for the labor that you are selling to them. What does it mean? Labor is a commodity. Is it or not? सीधी सी बात है. Okay, it is also a commodity. Now, remember one more thing. Commodity has use value and exchange value. Commodity has both use value and exchange value. What is the meaning of these two ugly words? The meaning of use value of labor as commodity simply means the services that I'm giving to Amul for money. If I render those services at home, not for anyone else but for myself, what does it show? It shows use value of the labor. Use in the sense you are utilizing for it yourself or for your own needs. But when you have to sell the same thing that you do for yourself to someone, you will ask for money. And that is the exchange value. Basically, use value reflects fulfillment of human need. Fulfillment of human need per se. Okay. An exchange value reflects commercial gain. Commercial gain that you get, commercial gain by selling the commodity. It is like exchange value. अभी समझ नहीं आया होगा, है ना? नो बोलो. Then I'll give you example. हाँ ठीक है, अब ठीक है. जब समझ नहीं आएगा नो बोलना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? सपोज आई एम मेकिंग मैगी एट माई होम। रात को 10 बजे मेरे को भूख लग रही है, मैं मैगी बना रहा हूं। आई एम कुकिंग मैगी। ओके, माई ब्रदर इज सेइंग मेरे लिए भी बना दे यार, एक बना ही रहा है तो। फिर मैं बोलता हूँ ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है, ओके। सो आई एम मेकिंग 2 cups of maggies, okay? Now the maggie that I have made for myself or for my brother, okay, it showed I see in my home also I did labor. Bhai, I opened the packet, boiled the water for 3 minutes, stood there, okay, waiting for the water to get boiled, and then I put all the ingredients. प्याज काटा था, वो सब काटा था, सब डाला. So I gave approximately 10 minutes of my life, okay, in making the Maggie. But that was just a use value. Use value in the sense I used my labor for my own purpose and for my brother. Okay. And for my brother. Now imagine my brother ate the Maggie. He had the Maggie and my brother told me, "Tu Maggie बड़ी अच्छी बनाता है यार. You make very nice Maggie. तेरे लिए मैगी की दुकान खोल दूं एक?" मैंने उसको बोला, हाँ खोल दे यार. Okay. Now my brother got so much impressed with the kind of Maggie that I make that he decided to open one shop for me so that I could show my talent to the people that how nice Maggie that I make. He opened the shop for me. Now I am making the same Maggie, but now I'm charging 30 rupees from all the people. I am doing the same labor which I was doing at home. The moment I come to shop or I work for someone else, I am charging for the labor. Are you getting? So when I was doing all for myself, that was use value of commodity. The moment I exchanged that commodity for money, it had exchange value. समझ गए? ठीक है. Use value, exchange value is clear to all of you. Now, remember when we use the word use value, when you do labor only to fulfill your needs, only your own needs at home without any commercial interest, that is regarded purely as, just remember these terms, okay? This is regarded as labor. But when you exchange the labor for money, for commercial gains, that is known as labor power. And what is labor power? Labor that is sold to the employer for wage. And labor is a commodity. It can have use value as well. If used for yourself, then it is labor only. If used for commercial gain, then it is labor power. Understood? ठीक. Now, what is the source? Karl Marx, Karl Marx uh, has developed what today we call as Marxian economics. Okay. Marxian economics is generally not taught in the universities. Okay. Specifically in those universities which are highly right wing. Okay. In those universities, Marxian economics is not taught. Okay, for obvious reasons, because it may develop those sentiments which the state would not want to develop amongst the students. Okay, so that is why it is generally prohibited. Okay, but in some departments it is taught. Okay, so I don't want to go into the details of the Marxian economics because that is not important to us. What is important for us is to understand the question that Marx had in his mind. The question that Marx had in his mind was, what is the source of profit? What is the source of profit to the capitalist class? A very basic question, research question in his mind. What is the source of profit to the capitalist class? He wanted to understand the answer to this question. Very simple question. Why? Why he wanted to understand answer to this question? When Karl Marx read Adam Smith and David Ricardo, these two economists were very popular in those times. Adam Smith and David Ricardo, Malthus also, and Say also, Say's laws we have. Okay, these are those people, these four people, Say, Malthus, and Ricardo and Adam Smith. These are those people who were talking about how economy runs and what is the source of profit to the capitalist class. Okay, they were also dealing with this question, and they believed somehow, I don't want to go into the details of those things. They believed that, when you talk about price of commodity, for example, 10 rupees pencil, how did we develop this price that this pencil will cost 10 rupees? It was purely based on supply demand. So the price of commodity is purely based on market forces, supply demand. Okay, so Marx is arguing, if everything is purely decided by market forces, in the sense not by any individual, it is completely in the hands of supply and demand only, then how come that despite this natural force of supply and demand, still some people are able to appropriate profit and some are not able to do so? If everything is purely driven by laws of economy, supply and demand is directing the economy, then how come some people are becoming rich and some are becoming poor? Is it also justified by law of supply and demand, or there is something which is hidden? Are you understanding the question that Marx is posing? हाँ, ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है. So the question was, what is the source of profit? If everything is driven on supply demand, how come profit is coming? How profit is squeezed out if everything is naturally driven by supply and demand? And therefore, Marx believed that something is hidden. There are many issues that no other economist have dealt with, and something that I will have to deal with. He believed that the source of profit, according to Marx, the source of profit is the exchange value of labor power. Remember this word, this statement forever. Exchange value of labor power. Now what is the meaning of this line? अभी थोड़ा heavy dose होएगा, थोड़ा heavy dose होएगा अभी, ठीक है, बट कोई दिक्कत नहीं. First, when you read something for the first time, that is natural. That is first layer. Okay, then second layer, third layer, and then fourth layer, and then everything will become so comfortable to all of you. Okay, exchange value of labor power is the source of profit. Now let us go back to that line. Exchange value of labor power. What was the exchange value of labor power? यहाँ पे कुछ मैंने बनाया था, यहाँ पे मैंने ऐसा कुछ लिखा था कि ये जो होता है इसका यूज वैल्यू होता है और इसका एक्सचेंज वैल्यू होता है. And what was that? It was nothing but commodity. But which commodity? I was talking about labor. Labor is a commodity, has use value, exchange value. When it has exchange value, then it is labor power. Right? When commodity has exchange value, that means you are selling your labor for a money. That means you are selling labor to the employee for wage. That is what labor power is. When you sell your labor power, you get 30,000 rupees. Okay. And Marx is saying that this exchange value, 30,000 rupees that you got, is the source of profit to the Amul. How? पहले तो यहां तक समझो कि हम किस सवाल का जवाब ढूंढने जा रहे हैं. पहले तो ये समझना पड़ेगा. What is that question that we are going to find answer of? The question is, what is the source of profit to the capitalist class, to the industrialists? If everything is based on supply demand forces only, then how come only few people are becoming rich? Very basic question Marx posed. And he believed the reason is exchange value of labor power. That means the reason for Amul person to become billionaire is the 30,000 rupees given to you. Now the question is how these two are statements related? How these two statements are related to each other. Now, Marx says labor has power to create values more than the worth of itself. Remember this line. Marx believed that labor has potential to create values more than its own worth. Okay, now this was the last line. Okay, अब मजा आएगा. अब कुछ भी नहीं बचा है, बस पहले इसको लिख लो, फिर मैं आगे बताता हूं. Marx believed that labor has potential to create values more than its own worth. Labor has potential to create values more than its own worth. What is the meaning of this? अब देखो इसका meaning. Then you will get to understand the source of profit. You sold your commodity, labor power, to the Amul person for 30,000 rupees per month. But Amul person extracted values out of your labor that was worth 1 lakh rupees. Bhai, your labor power, which is labor that is sold to the employer for wage, your labor power is worth 30,000. Okay. Let me draw labor power here. Marx is saying Amul gives you 30,000, but what you are actually giving to Amul is worth 1 lakh. How? How? How this worth was calculated 1 lakh? ऐसे randomly? नहीं, ऐसे randomly नहीं हुआ. Let me go into the micro details. Per day. Let me talk about per day. Piece rate per day. Per day, you got per hour. In fact, let me talk about per hour. Okay. Per hour, you are going to get per hour 100 rupees. Let us assume. Okay. And I'm now talking about one concept. I have to go into deeper details. Okay. So now I'll have to talk about what is happening between these two people in one day. And since I have to explain what is happening between these two people in one day, I'll have to explain working day. Working day. What is the meaning of working day? In working day, what happens? Per hour, your wage is 100 rupees. Okay. And you have to work for how many hours? 8 hours. 8 hours. From 9 a.m. to लगा लो 5 बजे तक. From 9 to 5 you have to work. That means how many you are going to get? How much you are going to get? 800 rupees. Okay, right? Marx is saying that what you wanted to earn for your own needs or for your own sustenance, that was already met in the first 4 hours. In the first 4 hours, that was already met. What you wanted to earn for your own self or for your own family members or whatever, that was already earned in the first 4 hours. What are you doing in the next 4 hours? You are working for the person who has employed you so that you could give him profit. The working day has been divided. The working day has been divided. Some amount of work you do to meet your own needs, but some amount of work you do to meet the needs of the employer. This is what Marx is saying. And the wage that you are going to get is only for the work that you did for your own needs. You are not going to get wage for the work that you did to meet the needs of the employer. अभी ये थोड़ा मुश्किल लगेगा, मैं अभी बताता हूँ, रुको. Let us first take 5 minutes break, okay? Because I want you guys to understand it properly. थोड़ा इसके लिए दिमाग फ्रेश चाहिए, ठीक है? 5 minutes break. Let me come back. मैं जब बाहर जाने लग गया तो मुझे पता चला it's already 4:17. There's no point in taking break then. Anyhow, so working day. It's very important concept. You work per hour, you get 100 rupees. For 8 hours, you are going to get 800 rupees. Marx is saying in the very first 4 hours, you have already met your needs. Okay, you have already met your needs. Okay. Now, in the next 4 hours, you are going to meet the needs of the employer. Okay. And you are not going to get wage for that. How does it happen? Suppose you are content creator, content developer. The salary of content developer, imagine, is 30,000. This content was sold on internet, in bookshops. Okay, it was given to different distributors in libraries. Overall, the content garnered worth or value worth 5 lakh. 5 lakh. But you got the content creator got 30,000 rupees. Okay. Now, Marx would say, what is the source of profit to the capitalist? What is the profit? The profit is 5 lakh minus 30,000. What is the profit? 4 lakh, 4.7 lakh is the profit made by the company man. What is the source of this profit? The source of this profit is obviously this man who was given 30,000 rupees. Right? If he was not there, you would not have made this much of amount. You would not have had this much of profit. So obviously exchange value, if you have lower exchange value, you will have higher returns. If you do not give enough wage or increment to the laborer, you will have lot of profit in your hand. Okay, and this in the Marxian term is called as exploitation. Okay, exploitation is not beating the workers. Remember this. Exploitation is the result of the difference between what the worker has gotten and what the worker has created. What the worker has created is of worth 5 lakh and the worth and what the worker has gotten is 30,000. The difference between these is 4.7 lakh. And this explains the rate of exploitation. The bigger the difference is, the higher is the rate of exploitation in the language of Marx. Imagine you have now earned 10 lakh rupees. Now the difference is 9.7 lakh, higher. And this shows this person who got 30,000 rupees is the most exploited man in this company. Understanding? The degree of exploitation is easily calculable. Okay, easily calculable. What you are getting and what you are producing, these are two different things. what you are doing, what the services that you are offering to the company, and the amount of wage that you are going to get in return for these services. These are not in proportion to each other. What you are going to offer to the company is highly worthy, in fact more worthy than the amount that you are going to get in return for that services. And this shows okay, very important concept. I'm going to talk about 3 words now. Remember those words. Marx believes value of commodity is equal to C plus V plus S. First, remember this, then I'm going to explain, and then everything will be linked. Okay. The value of commodity is C plus V plus S. Now let me talk about these words. The meaning of S is equal to surplus value. The meaning of V is variable capital. The meaning of C is constant capital. Okay. Value of commodity is constant capital plus variable capital plus surplus value. Now, what is the meaning of this? Okay. Commodity. What is the commodity here? What is the commodity here? There are 2 types of commodity. Labor power is also commodity. Okay, what I have offered to the company in exchange for wage, this labor power is also commodity. Second commodity is iPhone. iPhone is also commodity. Okay. The worth of iPhone, the worth of labor power is constant capital plus variable capital plus surplus value. The value of commodity is C plus V plus S. Okay. Now, what is surplus value? I'm going to explain you. Variable capital, constant capital. Constant capital. Constant capital is the capital required to produce the commodity. It is capital required to produce commodity. Okay. And since it is constant, it simply means it is not changing, it is not dynamic. In the sense, it is static. And what is that static capital which is required to produce commodity? That is machines and tools. These are static capitals. You have machine out of which shoes are produced, out of which iPhones are produced. That is constant capital. Okay. Now, what is variable capital? Variable capital is the labor power. The labor power, in the sense, it is not about machines and tools. It is about you, the laborer who has given his or her labor power to the company, in exchange of which you got certain money. That is variable capital, the labor power. Okay. And the last is surplus value. And the last is surplus value. Surplus value. Okay. Surplus value. What is the surplus value? The meaning of surplus value? The higher chunk that the capitalist class appropriated, the difference, if you remember, higher chunk 9.7 lakh is the surplus value, 4.7 lakh is the surplus value. I was paid 30,000 rupees, but the things that I created was worth 5 lakh rupees. What was the surplus value? 4.7 lakh is the surplus. Okay. So what is the meaning of surplus? The meaning of surplus is the difference between the value of wage and the value of capital. The value of wage and the value of capital. That is the surplus value. And what was the source? What was the source of the capital? What was the source of 5 lakh rupees or 4 lakh rupees? It was that laborer only who got 30,000 rupees. Okay, if that laborer was not there, there would not have been 5 lakh or 3 lakh income. There would not have been any surplus. Human labor is the source of capital. Okay. Now, Marx says that, very important line, constant capital does not add any value, to the commodity. Rather, it is the variable capital that adds all the values to the commodity. Constant capital does not add any value to the commodity. That means machines do not add any value to the content. Let me ask you a very simple question. First, write this down. Constant capital does not add any value to commodity. Rather, it is the value, it is the variable capital that gives all the value to the commodity. That means labor power is the source of all the values. Very simple सी बात है. Suppose I create content. Is the content like, for example, do you really think that it was because of, what would I say? Do you really think that computer or that MS Word or Paint or Adobe actually gave any value to my content? The content was all mine. I am the source of profit. It is not the Adobe. Bhai, Adobe is there to everyone. How you are going to use Adobe is going to make you different and going to make your content different. from rest of the people. Okay, so it is not Adobe per se or Paint per se or MS Word per se or computer per se which are increasing or which are giving any value to my content. It is the labor capital, it is the variable capital, that is the labor power itself, which is responsible for the creation of value in that commodity. So if that content has garnered 5 lakh rupees, it is not because of the MS Word that I used, Adobe Photoshop that I used, it is because of me and me alone. Understood? ठीक. Okay. Now one thing has been established. Exchange value of labor is the source of profit. Exchange value of labor was very low, 30,000 rupees, right? Only 30,000 was given. Okay. And how much of the worth of services you have lent to the company is worth 1 lakh. So the surplus is 70,000. Surplus is 70,000. Okay. Surplus is 70,000. Now, the fact is, Marx believes that the major source of this 70,000, the surplus which is going to be appropriated, this surplus is going to be appropriated by a capitalist class. Imagine who is going to have this 70,000 rupees, you or the person who has employed you. The person who has employed you is going to keep 70,000 in his pocket. He is not going to give you. But who was the creator of this 70,000 surplus value? It was you. You created 70,000 rupees worth of the product, but you did not get 70,000. The capitalist got 70,000. Is capitalism not an inverted world? This is what Karl Marx says. Capitalism is an inverted world. World inverted. In the sense, you do the work, but you do not get amount. He does not do the work, but he gets all. क्या बात है? क्या बात है? अरे, in primitive communism, in ancient society, in feudal society, what was recognized? Homo faber, the man as working, creative, expressive being. It is only through work that you would express your creativity, your potential. But today, in capitalism, what is happening is that we are seeing an inverted world where the one who works does not get money. The one who does not work gets all the money. Is capitalism not an inverted world? Capitalism runs purely and purely on profit. Nothing else. Nothing else is the driving force of this engine. Nothing else is the driving force of this engine. Only profit, only surplus value, nothing else. Okay. Now, Marx has said one beautiful line. He says, living labor creates dead capital, but the dead capital dominates over the living capital. Dead capital dominates over the living capital. What is the meaning of this line? What is the meaning of dead capital? The content. It is dead. It is dead. In the sense, it is not a living species. Okay, the source of the content was you who created that content. But this dead capital has dominated over the living capital because the living capital was worth only 30,000 and dead capital has the worth of 5 lakh. क्या बात है? Dead capital is your creation. Your creation has become over and external to you in this world. Your creation has assumed an identity that is over and above you, and you are worth only 30,000. Your creation is 5 lakh. What an inverted world we are living in. कितना अजीब सा world है ये. This is what Karl Marx is simply asking to all of us. Is this not very inverted sa world? I mean, see, the thing is, did you guys not know about these things already before you decided to join this course of sociology? You already knew this, but somehow you did not think like this. You did not go into these details. Okay. And you now started thinking over these questions, what actually seemed to be common sense. How the things actually became common sense to us. This is what Karl Marx is arguing. Okay. Dead capital dominates over the living capital. Now, what I'll do is, I'll stop here. 4:40 ho gaya hai kyunki. I'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to finish Marx. Okay, so, and then after finishing Marx, we are going to discuss questions also on Durkheim and Marx. Maybe not tomorrow, because tomorrow we will be done with Marx, and day after tomorrow we'll have criticism also on Marx, and then discussion on these two. Okay. So once we have proper understanding of the first three scholars, Weber, Marx, and Durkheim, then nothing is going to stop you from having good understanding of the subject. Okay, so I hope doubt तो कोई होगा नहीं, अगर है तो पूछ लो. सरप्लस वैल्यू एग्जांपल से समझ आ गया, बट डेफिनेशन से क्लियर नहीं हुआ. What is the definition? Surplus value, the value that you possess, value, your worth that you possess, okay, and what you get. These are two different things. The potential that you have and what you get, the difference between these is surplus value that is appropriated by the capitalist class. Keegan, what extra working hours got to do? Extra working, yes, okay. See, Marx says per day, you are going to get, assume you are going to get 2,000 rupees. Okay, that means per month you are going to get approximately 60 or 50, including if you take into consideration holidays also. Let us assume 56 or 60. Okay. Now, in one day you are going to get 2,000 rupees. How many works you have to do the job for? Hours. 8 hours. Okay, in 8 hours you are going to get 2,000 rupees. Remember this. 2,000 rupees is fixed income that you are going to get per day. But you have to work for 8 hours. One condition. Okay. Now the fact is, Karl Marx says that that out of this 2000, out of this 2000, in fact, he would say that the worth 2000 labor was already produced in the first 5 hours. Now the extra 3 hours, in the extra 3 hours, the capitalist is going to extract the revenue or the profit from him. In the first 5 hours, you have already made 2000 rupees worth of project. Bhai, you are going to get 2000 rupees. You have to sit for 8 hours. The fact is, in the first 4 or 5 hours only, you have done the whole work. The extra 3 hours now that you are sitting for is actually for the capitalist class. Now he will extract whatsoever he wants to extract from you. आपको घर नहीं जाने देंगे, पहली बात तो छुट्टी आप ले नहीं सकते. आप बोल दोगे काम कर लीजिए तो बैठो, अच्छा वो करो वो करो वो करो, अच्छा जो भी आप करोगे in those extra 3 hours, that is going to give them higher return, and you are not going to get reward for that. Okay, your reward is fixed. Your reward is fixed. Okay, 2000 rupees. This is what Marx is saying. Okay, so that way, in fact, the next important question is the degree of exploitation, or not degree, it is the modes of exploitation, how exploitation takes place. Here I will talk about one concept, length of working day. Okay, this is what I'll talk about tomorrow. Absolute surplus value is created, relative surplus value is created. These are also the things which I am going to tell you. Okay. Rajshri, can we say that Emile Durkheim division is a source of solidarity, modernism, kind of law governing social world? Emile Durkheim's division of labor will be source of. No, it's not kind of law. It is not a law. Durkheim was never a philosopher. Oh, sorry, Durkheim was not a positivist sociologist when he discussed division of labor. It is just his belief. It is not something which can be empirically tested. It is not a law per se. Okay, he never discussed it like a law. He never said this is a law that I am giving. Okay, one thing that he said was that yes, with industrialization the degree of forces are going to weaken. This is a law, but organic solidarity will integrate the weakened. This is not a law. I mean, see it, when Durkheim is talking about division of labor thesis, he's always comparing the society with organism. Okay, always comparing society with organism, and that is why he's treating society like an organism, and in an organism everything happens naturally. So that is why he did not give any law per se, since it was natural outcome. Okay, natural, everything is evolving, so that is why he did not decide to give law. Okay. So firstly, firms do not give the right wage, exploit us. Then the wage we get, a portion of it is taken by government. So in that way, we are doubly exploited. So we have become new slaves. Government is owning our labor. हाँ, इन सब के ऊपर भी बात करेंगे, हम कल करेंगे, कल और परसों करंट अफेयर्स को लेकर क्या चल रहा है अभी सोशलिज्म में. शुभम, value of wage in surplus value is same as variable capital. Value of wage in surplus value is same as variable capital. Variable capital is you. Okay, when you sell your labor, constant capital is the machines from which the goods are going to come. But who is the creator of those machines? The labor power only. By you have created those machines. and you are going to work on those machines. Okay, you are the variable capital. You are the variable capital. Machines are constant capital, fixed capital. You are variable capital. Why variable? Because you are adding value to the commodities. Machine per se do not add any value to the commodity. It is you and only you who is going to add value to the commodity. How? How? एक बात बताओ, कौन सा डिजाइन बनाना है जूते का, ये मशीन थोड़ा ना डिसाइड करती है, आप बनाते. All the designs that you have in your mind, those designs are made by you. Okay, you control machines, you repair machines. Okay, you make whole chart, you decide the sales, marketing, all those things, everything is done by you. You are the main source of value to the capitalist, not the machines which are making those goods. Okay, this is what Marx is saying. Sir, in this era of heavy industrialization, how much is it appropriate to assume that is constant capital negligible? No. Constant capital negligible कहाँ से हो गया? Constant capital is constant only in the sense, in comparison to variable capital, the labor that I am selling, in exchange of which I am getting income, that is variable capital ना. Constant capital is something already invested on by the capitalist class. I'll explain these things again to you tomorrow also. ठीक है, ताकि अभी क्या फर्स्ट लेयर गया होगा हमारे दिमाग में, सेकंड लेयर जो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट लेयर है वो कल जाएगा. कल मैं दोबारा इसको बता दूंगा. फैक्ट्री में जितने भी इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स हैं, all the instruments, all the raw material or the machines that are already there, all the transformer, assembly line, this is constant capital. Okay, the laborer or the labor power that you possess as the workers is the variable capital. The machine, assembly line, transformer, these things are static. These are not going to give value to the commodity. By value to the commodity is given by you, not by these machines. In fact, these machines are created in the first place by your labor only. So you are the ultimate source of the profit, not machines per se. शिवांगी, बहुत हंसी आ रही है तुमको? In the definition of surplus value, what is value of wage? Value of wage and surplus value same है. ये तो हो गया है, ये तो हो गया, ये भी हो गया है. Is in the definition of surplus value, what is value of wage? In the definition of surplus value, what is value of wage? ये मैंने बता दिया होगा ना, मतलब I mean, in the definition of surplus value, what is value of wage? Surplus value कहाँ से आया? By the difference between what value you have produced and what value you have got is surplus value. समझ गए ना शुभम? भाई शुभम, you have worked for the company, you have made a product, the worth of which is 2 lakh in the market, but you were given 40,000. What is the surplus value? 1.6 lakh. This surplus value is given to or is appropriated by the company man, not by you. Tomorrow you will get bonus. After 1 year you will get happy. Arey, why you are getting happy? This is what Marx is saying, that 1.6 lakh जो तुम्हें मिल जाना चाहिए था, उसी में से तुम्हें 0.2 पकड़ा के अब तुम्हें बोल दिया bonus, and we get happy. This is false consciousness. I'll explain these things tomorrow, by the way.